Girl from the Other Side is one of those quaint fantasy series that's never really been appreciated as much as it should be. Despite spanning 12 volumes, receiving a short OVA, and even a feature-length adaptation, it's still not talked about nearly as much as you'd expect, especially for how absolutely beautiful it looks and how unique its aesthetic is. And a lot of that comes down to the author's intention from the very beginning.
そうですね。結構、ヨーロッパの、民謡とか昔の話は結構好きです。なので、嫁国の少女でその世界を自分なりに書けたらいいなと思って意識して書きました。
On record, Nagabe has been influenced by Tove Jansson, Komiko Sakai, Tasha Tudor, and works like Alice in Wonderland and Beauty and the Beast. Just from that mix of influences alone, you can already see how The Girl from the Other Side came together. The series looks and feels like a picture book, its illustrations almost reminiscent of the children's novels I grew up on, like The Tale of Peter Rabbit, Paddington Bear, or Winnie the Pooh, because of the slightly uneven, unpolished look of each page. And I mean that as a giant compliment. You can see it in the line work. There's a slight roughness to it. The way the ink sits on the page, the softness of the edges, areas that almost feel water-stained or washed over, adding a really distinct texture. Nagabe achieves this using 2 Pilot Super Petite brush pens, a fine tip and one medium, to really define those heavy blacks on the page, which in turn helps recreate the feel of older European illustration techniques like etching or woodcut, where contrast is sharp and the weight of the image comes from the ink itself. So when Shiva, the adorable young girl at the centre of the story, asks teacher to read her a book that begins with the traditional Once Upon a Time, there's an irony to it, a storybook inside a story that already feels like one. But more than that, The Girl from the Other Side not only looks reminiscent of a children's storybook, it has some of the most stunning uses of contrast and negative space within the manga scene, on par with the likes of Land of the Lustrous, which uses visual language more for uniformity and symmetry within that estranged world. The Girl from the Other Side uses it far more metaphorically. The art quite literally supports the narrative, and so, for this video, I'm going to break down how Nagabe achieved this into 3 sections: the use of black and white, the divide between insiders and outsiders, and the idea of purity versus the cursed. And speaking of storybooks, the hardcover deluxe editions of The Girl from the Other Side are genuinely some of the most beautiful physicals out there, which you can pick up from today's sponsor, Walt's Comic Shop. These editions genuinely look like storybook covers. The print quality is fantastic, the gold foiling is really clean and detailed, and each cover features its own original illustration made specifically for these editions, rather than the standard volumes. Even the spines are stunning. They're wide enough to include small illustrations, so when you line them up on a shelf, they're just really nice to look at. So if you're a collector, I'd honestly 100% recommend these, even if you already own the standard volumes. Walt's Comic Shop has also put together a bundle for these deluxe hardcovers, so you can pick them up a bit cheaper than buying them individually. With editions like this, especially at a higher price point, you want them arriving in perfect condition, and that's where Walt's Comic Shop are an amazing pick. Everything is tightly wrapped in bubble wrap, cushioned with biodegradable packing peanuts and reinforced cardboard, all inside a sturdy outer box so you don't have to worry about dents or scuffs, and their shipments are fully insured and trackable too. But even if hardcovers aren't your thing, they also stock the paperback editions, which are still gorgeous in their own right. You're getting the same artwork and atmosphere, just in a more affordable format. So if you're interested, check out the link in the description to see their full selection, and if you're based in the UK or EU, you can use my code LINESINMOTION to get free shipping on your first order over £40 or €40. A big thank you to Walt's Comic Shop for sponsoring this video. Nagabe has been very open about why The Girl from the Other Side looks the way it does. While heavy use of negative space and high contrast can be an aesthetic choice, in this case they play a central role, both in expressing these stories' themes and making them immediately readable.
で、そのコントラストって、すごいわかりやすくて、みんなも、すぐわかるかなと思っていて、で、なので、自分も白と黒を使うのが得意なので、意図して他の色を使わずに、描いています。
Shiva is a small, bright child left mostly untouched by ink, while Teacher is a tall, irregular silhouette consumed by it. And that literal contrast shapes everything about them. Shiva exists through positive space, while Teacher is the opposite, a shape cut out of the world around him. They share the same space, but they're never drawn the same way. And very quickly we learn that Shiva doesn't just exist in the light, but literally brings it with her. In so many panels, she becomes the focal point simply by being there, a small white figure surrounded by darkness. Even their home reflects this. The house sits as a bright space surrounded by black, almost like a vignette. It doesn't feel completely safe, but it feels more comforting because she's there. And that's visual language used to its full advantage, because rather than black and white being only literal on the page, emotion and the connotations that come with those colours becomes just as important. White space can slow pacing, isolate characters, or let you sit with a moment, often referred to as a beat. And because of that, when black enters the frame, it intrudes on that piece. You see this most clearly in Teacher. When he's conflicted, the shadows pour onto those panels, sometimes even spilling into the gutters when flashbacks are involved. His speech will sometimes invert, his thoughts become in negative space too, showing how often he's pulled further into something he can't control. When the gutters and even the entire page turn black, it adds a subconscious pressure, or even a sense of claustrophobia, something we instinctively associate with darkness. And Nagabe uses that to great effect. For example, there's a moment where Shiva escapes danger from an insider soldier turned cursed being, and everything opens into white space. It feels safe again, she's escaped danger, the dark can't reach her anymore. Until the next page, which is completely black, except for a single streak of white, the motion of a weapon thrown at every reader's newly adopted daughter. That contrast is what gives the moment its impact. White is essentially a pause, or watching something at half speed. It drags out that moment of faux relief, only to cut to black with a harsh and gasp-worthy interruption. The exact same thing happens when Shiva is touched for the first time by a cursed being. Its black hand against her white character design collides with everything we've come to associate with safety. It's literally the only thing we've been warned about that could never under no circumstances happen, and yet it did. But what makes it unsettling is how gentle it is. The hand cups her face, brushing past her ear in a soft manner that is just unnerving, and it feels even more striking due to the contrast that feels like it's ripped straight out of a horror scene. And Nagabe loves to push the horror elements of the story. I mean, the curse itself could be considered body horror, black spreading across your skin and eventually, well, spoilers. In the face of all this, Shiva and Teacher remain at the centre of each visual decision. Despite being almost entirely black, Teacher is incredibly expressive because of his eyes. Compared to other black children, Nagabe draws Teacher with white eyes that feel so warm and inviting. They carry a softness and emotion that always draws your attention, especially considering they're surrounded by darkness, where we can't see the rest of his face for emotive signs. So when Teacher loses his humanity, his soul, his white eyes are removed too, and he becomes almost unrecognisable. Nothing about his form changes dramatically, but everything about how we perceive him does. What begins as a simple contrast between black and white gradually becomes something far more complex. It becomes a way of conveying emotion, controlling pacing and shaping character, all from something as simple as where the ink is placed and where it isn't. From the very first page, the girl from the other side establishes a world built on juxtapositions. Insiders versus outsiders, pure versus cursed, light versus darkness. The divide between insiders and outsiders is perhaps the most striking narratively, and it's one that visuals strongly enforce and enhance. There's a clear European influence in the architecture of the main city, where elements of Gothic design appear throughout in gorgeous, bright, open compositions dominated by white space. The recurring cathedral-like structures carry associations of sin and purity, often tied to organised religion or cultism, which makes sense given insiders worship and follow the god of light, which kind of reminds me of earlier European witch trials, where fear of witchcraft and religious instability led to the deaths of many innocents. And whether intentional or not, that parallel feels difficult to ignore considering how outsiders are treated so similarly. On the flip side, the bubble and sheltered life of insiders who live outside the main city are drawn in softer and brighter tones, with more open space and lighter compositions. The locations within these villages are untouched by the curse, meaning houses look welcoming, almost like depictions of peaceful English Cotswolds, or even the picturesque coastal villages in Normandy, both of which are visited for their storybook charm. Now, technically, the outsiders live in the exact same location, but they're tainted and forcefully ostracised. When soldiers from the inside are ordered to march towards the outside, you literally see the panels become darker the further they explore, because the outside is burdened with histories of unnecessary deaths and unspeakable events that literally and physically darken its presence. And so Nagabe draws those same environments, dipped in heavy blots of ink. These pages are more dense and completely overwhelmed by shadows and cursed silhouettes that swallow even the smallest spaces of light. Teacher himself is a living and breathing, well, actually I'm not 100% sure he breathes, being who exists entirely within the visual language of the outside, frequently blending into shadows and merging with the darkness around him. At times his form even aligns with structural elements such as bars or frames, reinforcing the idea that he's not only confined by his circumstances, but visually absorbed into them, literally too if you consider he's drawn with ink. When it's revealed Teacher was once human, that he had a wife and child, this moment takes place within a rare space of light. A brief reminder that he was once, quote-unquote, pure. Teacher's not only separated from the inside, but trapped in a form that ensures he can never return to it. And so the catalyst of change between the outside and inside, of course, is Shiva. When Shiva is welcomed, actually that's not really the right word, but we'll go with it, to the inside, the difference is immediately noticeable. The houses appear brighter, shadows disappear, and pages just feel calmer, lighter, more breathable. She creates a sense of safety that's so visually constructed around her willingness to hang around insiders without worry. Darkness signifying danger and light suggesting safety isn't anything new, but because they're so ingrained within people's understanding of how colour can invoke certain emotions, it's so easy for Nagabe to weave those instinctual reactions into the story. Through his imagery and characterization, the manga presents a world where the distinction between insider and outsider is shaped by perception and fear, which also does an impressive job of showing how easily people can be led to accept those beliefs when fear is weaponized. I think the worry of being cursed is a humane one, but the need to punish those already suffering or those merely at risk pushes that fear into something far more extreme. Those in power within the inside are literally killing people on the basis of them being in the same environment as a cursed one, because they see them as vile creatures, something to be eradicated. And yet, for both the reader and Shiva, Teacher reveals a different reality, that those who are cursed can still be gentle and kind. While the world of The Girl from the Other Side shows a clear divide between insiders and outsiders, it also presents a distinction between who is considered pure and who is cursed, mostly seen through Shiva in contrast to everyone else. On a surface level reading, the divide is pretty much biological and physical. The most feared aspect of the curse is its ability to strip away your humanity, both physically and, to some extent, mentally. Teacher, as a cursed being, has lost many traits people associate with being human. He doesn't eat, sleep, or feel physical pain in the ways most humans do. I mean, he literally put his hand in an open fire and didn't even flinch. And yet despite this, he continues to show the care and gentleness that you'd ironically expect from a teacher, particularly in his relationship with Shiva. The curse may have removed the physical traits and senses humans have, but his heart is definitely there. And that's where the cruelty of the curse really starts to show. From the beginning, to touch or be touched is reprimanded by Teacher as something dangerous and forbidden. Even a simple brush of the hand or hug is enough to spread the curse, making the curse feel even more isolating when you think, above anything else, physical connection is something outsiders are denied too. But in removing touch, it only makes the idea of it feel stronger, more present in its absence. As the saying goes, you don't know what you've got until it's gone. And that is something you see Shiva and Teacher struggle with constantly. When Teacher reaches out to comfort Shiva, his large, shadowed hands are framed in a way that could easily be read as monstrous, something you'd otherwise see in a horror manga. What appears threatening is, in reality, an act of care that must be held back. Teacher can't touch Shiva, console her, or even comfort her in times of need, and no child should be deprived of that. Something so simple that should come naturally to parents is forbidden for Teacher, and that longing really touches at the heartstrings. Shiva's perspective, in contrast, is shaped by an innocent child's understanding of the world, one that hasn't been fully influenced by the segregated rules imposed by the insiders. I mean, due to Teacher's warnings, she knows not to touch him, and having been abandoned under suspicion of being cursed, she has been affected, socially at least. But her way of thinking, the ingenuousness of how she sees things, is ironically left untouched. The idea that Teacher is something to be feared, a creature rather than a person, hasn't quite reached it yet. And so it's not shocking to see her wanting to get close to Teacher. Shiva's always trying her hardest to get close to him in ways that doesn't get her in trouble, nor breaks the rules. Affection is only natural, for a kid even more so. And that tension between the innocence and the rules she's been taught is reinforced through the manga's visual language. One of the most striking examples comes during a snow-covered chapter, where both the world and the pages themselves are almost entirely white save for outlines. The brightness reflects the innocence of playtime, and if the Western European influence is anything to go by, snow like that isn't something you see all the time, which makes the moment feel even more special when it happens. Another example is when Shiva presents Teacher with a flower crown, completely white against his dark form, an adorable moment that Teacher ends up clearly cherishing. It also allows Shiva to touch Teacher in a way that isn't literally. It's the kind of comforting silliness you'd expect from a child, offering something joyously handmade and innocent to a being who, in appearance, is anything but. So when you eventually turn to that specific page, which shows the gradual spread of the curse across Shiva's body, it's devastating. The black feels harsher than it ever has before, and it's because we're so used to black never being a part of Shiva's presence or character design, revealing just how deeply that association between colour and emotion has been ingrained. And we know the curse goes far beyond its simple and literal infection. As shown through Teacher, it comes with guilt and lingering self-hatred, if even a lack of self-worth too. Even something as small as a black burnt pie is rejected by Teacher as being something tainted and unworthy, clearly a reflection of how he sees himself. But Shiva accepts it without hesitation, simply because Teacher made it. She doesn't care if it's ruined, she was given something by him, and that's what matters. Even her comment, "It's black all over, just like you," reinforces that acceptance, loving him for exactly as he is, no matter what he looks like. The curse may change how someone looks, it may strip away what is considered normal, but it does not fully define who they are. And in a world so obsessed with avoiding touch, the story hints that the real loss is not becoming cursed, but losing the ability to reach out and connect at all. For all its focus on segregation across its many themes, ultimately the core message of Teacher and Shiva's story is about connection, and how it can make even the darkest places feel a little less lonely. Teacher spent years in solitude, banished by humans, insiders for being cursed, but also distanced from fellow black children who constantly reminded him of how different he was. It makes sense that isolation is what allowed the darkness to grow beyond the curse itself, consuming not just him, but everything around him. His body, missing senses, fading memories, even to the very house he resided. That is, until Shiva. Someone who entered his life and showed him that being cursed doesn't make you undeserving of love. even if they are a 7-foot monster with a broken antler and missing foot. Through their relationship, he begins to see what he couldn't before, even the smallest points of light, like beautiful twinkling stars in a dark, clouded sky. The manga turns warmer and brighter by Shiva's mere appearance. A building that was once cold and lifeless becomes a comforting, lived-in home, even if the two who share it are polar opposites in so many ways. And that's what the girl from the other side keeps returning to, and something Nagabe so perfectly demonstrates. Not that the world isn't black and white, but that the way we see it and treat it doesn't have to be. Hey guys, thanks for watching to the end of the video. As always, I have finally finished this video. I've been wanting to cover the girl from the other side for years now. It's had a few cameos on a few videos over the years, but I finally managed to make a dedicated video towards the manga, and it is very deserving of its own video because it's such a beautifully illustrated manga. I mean, these editions are no joke. They are absolutely stunning and are probably some of the, if not one of my favourite manga that I've collected over the years. They are genuinely beautiful, and because of today's sponsor, Walt's Comic Shop, you can buy them on their website, which I'll link down below. They've got a bundle deal on for the 3 deluxe editions, I believe, or you can buy the paperback versions as well, which are just as beautiful to have on your shelf. So I want to give a massive shout out to Walt's Comic Shop, and then also everyone supporting me over on Patreon. You know, it lets me do videos like this which aren't as mainstream, if you will. I know that there'll be people there to watch it and support it, etc, etc. The next video is going to be covering Nimona. People on Patreon voted for that, and then the video after that, it depends on if the Witch Hat Atelier anime comes out first or finishes first. Otherwise, I'm going to be covering the film The Summit of the Gods, which also does have a manga and either a light novel or a book. Either one, I guess, is technically the same. So depending on if Witch Hat finishes first, I'll be covering either one of them. So yeah, exciting things are coming soon, and I'll see you guys in the next one.